speaking of where things are going next, Donald Trump, we have all been waiting with bated breath in the media and in the country at large for a possible arrest if he is indicted by a grand jury in New York. That could come today. Reports seem to be suggesting that it actually will happen next week. Ryan, just on the timeline, let's pause here for a second. Donald Trump is the one who gave us the Tuesday date, which was yesterday. But that obviously didn't pan out. It now looks like they heard from their last witness yesterday, which is why some people expect it could happen today. There are reports from the Daily Mail that it's going to happen next week. What do you make of this timeline? When do you think it's likely, if he is indicted, that an arrest takes place?
And it seems like Trump's intel on a Tuesday arrest was coming from the fact that Monday was supposed to be a last, like you said, witness. Then the grand jury has to vote. There's 23 members on the grand jury. As long as there's a majority vote, then a sealed indictment is produced. But then Bragg has to make decisions from there. Like, it's not a fait accompli at that point that he's indicted. And it's not a fait accompli, actually, that Bragg will ask for an indictment. He could still decide, you know what, I'm actually not going to go forward with this. There's some reporting that there could be another witness that comes before the grand jury this afternoon. But there is speculation that there would be a vote this afternoon. But like you said, that doesn't immediately lead to Trump getting cuffed. Trump has said that he will fly up from Mar-a-Lago, turn himself in, and then you'll go through this entire ritual, this of doing the fingerprints and the mugshot, which to me is just so strange that you would need a mugshot of former President Donald Trump. I think the government has a photo of him. I'm also not sure he's that much of a flight risk. He's the most recognizable man on the planet. Fingerprints, I suppose, then you can check to see if he was handling these documents or something. But Bragg's case is all about Stormy Daniels, where while you still have the documents case ongoing, there was a ruling in that just yesterday afternoon. They may be back in court on that one today. That's in federal court. And then you have the Georgia grand jury, right, that is still pursuing charges. And to me, the Georgia case is the only one that I get really interested in, because it's about something substantial. It's about the stolen election. It's about Trump's effort to kind of steal it back to trigger ultimately January 6th. Yeah. So that to me is something that is fair for Democrats to contest and for prosecutors to go after, because it's so fundamental to the core value of democracy in the United States. To invent kind of a rationale to say that, well, this payoff to this porn star used campaign funds, and you should have listed it in your billing records as this expense, but you actually listed it as this expense to Michael Cohen. So we're going to combine all these and call it a low-level felony. When John Edwards was able to beat probably an even worse example of it, that doesn't clear the bar for me, and neither does the document stuff. But that's because I'm more of a civil liberties person that thinks that there's too much that's overclassified, and you have to kind of see what the documents are. So I somewhat of an open mind there. But yeah, where do you? I mean, on principle, I think nobody's above the law. Right. And if you've got the goods on a former president, then you should prosecute him. Right. And as growing up, we were always taught Richard Nixon wasn't above the law, except he did get a pardon. and there's something beautiful about that fact, that nobody is above the law. At the same time, you don't want to gin up a case. Right. Just for politics, just to prove nobody's above the law. I mean, if we want to start playing this game, you can do the show me the person, I'll show you the crime thing, depending on who's in charge of which prosecutor's office, who's in charge of the FBI at any given time. And by the way, we saw this with the raid on Trump that was framed by the media and the political establishment as a clear-cut criminal case. And then when it came to Joe Biden, it was not. It came to Joe Biden in a similar situation. That same framing had just kind of tapered off. So I agree. I mean, I think anytime somebody is doing something wrong, whether it's unethical or unlawful, that is entirely fair game for people to investigate, and it's entirely fair game for the media to scrutinize. But to ratchet something up to felony level,
is a really, really dangerous game. When I first saw this news, I think it was like last week that we were heading in this direction. I don't know about you, but my stomach just dropped. And there were these immediate, Trump talked about people taking to the streets and protesting, and Republicans were really freaked out about that and said, basically they're trying to, ratchet this up, make these, heighten the tensions and heighten the contradictions and get you really ready to do something that's going to be problematic for your cause. And I don't know that it's intentional, but you can see that this would head in a very negative direction. Trump, according to a new report in the New York Times, is very apparently telling people he's very ready for this to happen. He thinks that there's some showmanship that can be played out if he doesn't even mind, according to the Times, getting cuffed, and has sort of mused about whether it'd be better to smile, what the right kind of stylistic approach would be to that very physical situation. Now, if he does just turn himself in, Bragg doesn't have to go through that. They don't have to perp walk him. I think it's much better for the country that they don't. I think it's much better for the country that they don't create a felony charge, fabricate really a felony charge on an obscure legal theory that this constituted a felonious campaign finance violation, because that's where you get into Banana Republic territory and the power starts to really get wielded in terrifying ways.
And I would still love to see Trump prosecuted for something, but to me, what about selling U.S. foreign policy to Saudi Arabia for billions of dollars? Like you could make that case if you actually cared, but they don't want to make that case because Trump only did it on a more aggressive and more brazen scale than everybody in our kind of political ecosystem does it. So I think that the thing that has protected him from more serious charges is the fact that he's the most brazen criminal among a gang of criminals in Washington.
He is more brazen about it.
But if you go after him, then you're like, well, wait a minute. What about this selling of our foreign policy for this amount of money? Why don't we get that one too? Which I'd say, okay, roll them all up.
Republicans on the Oversight Committee last week released bank records showing this transaction between a Chinese energy company, a Biden business associate, and then about $1 million worth of payouts to different Bidens in the course of a couple months. And so, again, there is a difference in the brazenness. There's no question about it. But if we're going to start doing this, we're going to start doing this. There's no way around it. And I do think that the same standard should apply. I do think that, it's incredible for Joe Biden to be able to, that the media lets Joe Biden get away and Democrats get away with claiming the moral high ground on all of this just because everybody hates Donald Trump. We look away from all of these other things. But when things are not at a felony level and you start looking at them that way, other things that aren't at a felony level are going to start being looked at that way. And it will feel like a banana republic.
And one of my favorite political analysts, Chris Rock, if we can put up his comments here, this happened at some type of a private event, so unfortunately we don't have...
The Mark Twain Awards for Adam Sandler, who absolutely deserves a Mark Twain Award and is an American treasure.
And unfortunately we don't have video of this because... But we all know Chris Rock so well that you can actually just imagine him. The AI in your head can just kind of produce the video for you,
or you can do Michael Scott's impression.
There you go. There you go. So his argument that basically this is going to actually help Donald Trump,
right?
Using the Tupac Shakur argument that he sold 3 million records while he was in prison. What's your guess? Trump, as you were saying, seems to believe that himself, that this might actually kind of rebound to his benefit. Do you think that's right, or does it depend? I
think it rebounds to Republicans' benefits, but not to Trump's benefit, because there's if you're arrested and that image is sort of indelible in the public consciousness, I think that's really hard to get away with or get away from. So I just don't. I do like what Chris Rock says here. He says he slept with a porn star and paid off someone so his wife wouldn't find out. That's romantic. And Donald Trump is clearly not getting enough credit for being a romantic.
That's true. It's really a soft side of Donald Trump.
In that sense, yes, it helps him. But no, I think it
humanizes him a little bit. Yeah. What a sweetheart he is.
Right. Yeah. But that's, he's getting at why it's really hard to classify this as a campaign finance violation, because you have to prove it was done in order to help your campaign and not your marriage.
Well, ironically, the argument that Trump would have to make on his own behalf would be to say, I'm just such a flagrant cheater that you think that I actually care about my wife. No, this was purely about the campaign.
This is all the campaign.
And that was a harder argument for Edwards to make. That, because, and Edwards was trying to, cover this up from his family and for reasons of personal embarrassment. Like that was clear, that it wasn't just about the campaign. Donald Trump could be like, look, I'm a complete narcissist and kind of sociopath. I don't care what people think of me. Like, I like bad news about me because it gets my name in the press. Like he could call all of the therapists that have talked to the Atlantic over the years, and they'll come in and say, yep, we have actually diagnosed him in the pages of the Atlantic as all the things he says.
Expert witnesses.
He does not care what you say about him as long as you say something about him. So the fact that he covered something up that would have been in the news suggests it must have been calculation about a campaign.
It's the only answer.
It's the only thing that makes any sense.
It's the only reasonable explanation.
Now, Melania was pregnant at the time, and there is some evidence that that made him feel a little extra guilty.
I don't know.
So maybe there is something underneath that sociopathy, that some human element that was touched.
But this is why we can't trust the psychological experts, the armchair,
true,
in the Atlantic, because honestly, who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows what goes on there?
Turns out you can't trust the psychiatrists in the Atlantic just diagnosing off of television. Who knew?
It's honestly, it's a good lesson for all of us. But it is also true, by the way, just one final quick thought, that Trump, whether this hurts Trump or ultimately boosts him, I don't buy the argument it boosts him, because I think it's possible that it sets him on an even more, we've seen his True Social posts, which are, I think, a step up from his Twitter posts. Actually getting arrested, the sort of psychological effect of that, not to be an armchair psychiatrist myself, but actually getting arrested, I think it's possible sends him on a very different trajectory. And that's not one that'll be politically beneficial. It certainly wouldn't be beneficial for the country, is my assumption. But I don't know. He's full of surprises.
As long as he's got a bootleg phone behind bars, like one of these androids, he has to text to Twitter or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is how some of us had to do it in high school.
There you go.
Back in the day.
Back in the day.
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Soccer and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.